He was the Man of Steel, a hero to millions, and supposedly invincible. But in the early morning of June 16, 1959, George Reeves, the actor who brought Superman to life, was found dead from a single gunshot wound. The police called it suicide, closing the case with alarming speed. But the evidence they ignored, and the powerful people many believe they refused to question, tell a very different story. For decades, rumors have swirled around a forbidden affair with a powerful woman who wouldn't let him go. Now, looking back at the evidence, a darker picture emerges. Many believe Superman wasn't just murdered, but that the person responsible was hiding in plain sight, protected by the most powerful studio in Hollywood. This isn't just a story about a mysterious death. It's a story about obsession, jealousy, and the dark heart of Tinseltown, where absolute power could make even murder disappear. And the truth of what happened that night might be far worse than we ever thought. Before the Cape, before he was a household name, George Reeves was just another aspiring actor trying to make it in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. Born in a small town in Iowa, he had a complicated childhood and eventually found his way to the Pasadena Playhouse, a respected acting school. His talent and classic, chiseled good looks got him noticed, landing him a small but memorable role in the blockbuster Gone with the Wind. It seemed like the start of a promising career, but as we all know, Hollywood is a fickle beast. Despite a string of roles and service in the Army Air Forces during World War II, true stardom remained just out of reach. He took parts in B-movies and serials that paid the bills but didn't build a legacy. Then, in 1951, came the role that would define him forever, Superman. The Adventures of Superman became an overnight sensation. Children across America were captivated, tuning in every week to watch their hero. To an entire generation of kids, George Reeves was Superman. He embraced the responsibility, known for his kindness to young fans and his charity work. By all accounts, he was a gentleman who took his role model status seriously, but the cape was a blessing and a curse. The show made him famous, but it also trapped him. He was severely typecast. No one could see past the blue suit and the giant S on his chest. He longed for more serious roles, for a chance to direct, but producers and audiences couldn't separate the man from the Man of Steel. This frustration would later be a key part of the police narrative of a depressed man ready to give up. Despite professional frustrations, friends described him as optimistic and full of life. He had plans for the future, including starting his own production company and filming a new season of Superman. This portrait of a man looking forward, not looking for a way out, stands in stark contrast to the grim picture painted by the LAPD. The official story was suicide, but the people who knew him best couldn't believe it. And as we'll see, they had every reason to be skeptical. To understand what might have happened, you have to understand the studio system of old Hollywood. And at the heart of that system was MGM's feared fixer, Toni Mannix. His official title was general manager, but his real job was much darker. Mannix made problems disappear. When a star got into trouble, an affair, a DUI, any scandal, Mannix cleaned it up using intimidation, bribery, and his contacts in the police and the press. He was the man who knew where all the bodies were buried, some whispered literally. In 1951, Eddie married a former showgirl named Toni Lanier. Their marriage was an unusual one, even for Hollywood. It was an open secret that both had affairs. Eddie reportedly even approved of Toni's activities. That same year, Toni Mannix met George Reeves. He was handsome, famous, and 8 years her junior. An intense affair began almost immediately. Toni was deeply infatuated with Reeves, showering him with gifts. She bought him the Benedict Canyon house where he would later die, a car, and expensive clothes. He was essentially her kept man, living in a golden cage, involved with the wife of one of the most powerful and feared men in town. For nearly a decade, the strange arrangement continued. But the dynamic shifted dramatically in early 1959 when George Reeves met a young New York socialite named Leonore Lemon. Reeves fell for her and did something he'd never done before. He ended his long-term affair with Toni Mannix, telling her he planned to marry Leonore. For Toni, this was an unbearable betrayal. She was reportedly devastated and, more dangerously, enraged. According to the book Hollywood Kryptonite, Toni's devastation morphed into a terrifying obsession. She allegedly began stalking and harassing Reeves with incessant, frantic phone calls. The golden cage was broken, and the woman who built it wasn't letting him go. A dangerous mix of jealousy, passion, and power was brewing, and many believe it would ultimately lead to his destruction. The night of June 15, 1959, was filled with drinks and tension. George Reeves and his fiancée, Leonore Lemon, returned to his home at 1579, Benedict Canyon Drive after an evening out. Reeves went upstairs to his bedroom, but Leonore's night wasn't over. She had guests arrive looking for a party around 1 a.m. The noise from downstairs eventually disturbed Reeves. Sometime after 1:20 a.m., he came down, agitated, complained about the late-night party, and then returned to his bedroom. What happened next is the core of the mystery. According to the police report, based almost entirely on Leonore Lemon's statement, as Reeves went back up the stairs, she made a bizarre and prophetic remark to her guests. "He's probably going to go shoot himself," she allegedly said. A moment later, they heard a drawer open upstairs. Lemon added, "He's opening a drawer to get the gun." Then, a single gunshot echoed through the house. Lemon declared, "See there, I told you so." It's a statement so strange, so chillingly specific, it almost defies belief. Lemon would later tell police she was only kidding, a claim that seems utterly inadequate, but even more suspicious was the delay that followed. For anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, no one called the police. William Bliss was the first to go upstairs and find Reeves, naked on his bed, a single gunshot wound to his head and a Luger pistol on the floor between his feet. That delay is a critical hole in the official story, a period where a story could be aligned and evidence could be tampered with. When the LAPD finally arrived, they seemed ready to accept the story they were given. Within hours, based on little more than the statements of the very people who had delayed calling them, they ruled the death a suicide. The case was closed. The public was stunned. For the LAPD, the answer was simple: depression over a stalled career. But for those who looked closer, the answer was anything but. The official suicide ruling was a house of cards. The physical evidence left behind seemed to scream that something was terribly wrong. Let's start with the weapon. The Luger pistol was found between Reeves's feet. The first glaring red flag: there were no fingerprints found on it. None. The gun was suspiciously clean, suggesting it may have been wiped down. Then there's the gunpowder residue. When a gun is fired at close range, it leaves powder on the shooter's hand and skin. Investigators reported no gunpowder residue on George Reeves's hands. While some argue that pressing a gun firmly to the temple can force residue into the wound, the lack of any residue on his hands remains a suspicious anomaly. It's also worth noting that gunshot residue testing wasn't a routine practice in 1959, making the lack of a formal test itself a point of contention. The shell casing tells a similar story. The spent casing from the fatal shot was found underneath Reeves's body. A semi-automatic pistol like a Luger ejects a casing away from the shooter. For it to land where his falling body would cover it is ballistically improbable. It's far more likely it landed elsewhere and was moved. Perhaps the most damning evidence against the suicide theory was in the room itself. Witnesses claimed they only heard one gunshot. Yet, investigators discovered 2 additional bullet holes in the bedroom floor, hidden under a rug, fired from the same Luger. No one at the party had an explanation for them. These extra bullet holes demolish the tidy narrative of a single act of suicide and point to a more chaotic, violent event. Finally, a second, private autopsy ordered by Reeves's mother revealed unexplained bruises on his head and body, suggesting a fight before his death. This was evidence the police either missed or ignored. The body was also embalmed before this second autopsy could be performed, making a full examination of the wound's angle and depth difficult. Every piece of physical evidence pointed away from suicide. This didn't just look like a flawed investigation, to many, it looked like a cover-up. The question wasn't whether the official story was wrong, but who had the power to make it stick? With the suicide theory so full of holes, suspicion naturally fell on others. Leonore Lemon's bizarre behavior made her a person of interest, but another figure loomed much larger: Toni Mannix, the spurned lover with a powerful motive and immense resources. The motive is classic: a woman scorned. After an 8-year affair, Reeves had left her for a younger woman, and Toni was reportedly enraged and obsessed. The book Hollywood Kryptonite details a campaign of harassing phone calls and threats. Phyllis Coates, the first actress to play Lois Lane, shared a chilling story. She claimed that at 4:30 on the morning of Reeves's death, she got a frantic call from Toni Mannix, who told her, "The boy is dead. He's been murdered." How could Toni have known it was murder when the news wasn't even public yet? Toni had the motive, but what about the means? She still had keys to the house she'd bought for him. More importantly, she had Eddie Mannix. A man like Eddie, with rumored ties to organized crime, would not take the public humiliation of his wife being dumped lightly. A persistent theory is that a vengeful Toni turned to her husband, who then arranged a hit on Reeves, ensuring the police investigation was just a formality. The lawyer Reeves's mother hired, Jerry Giesler, abruptly resigned from the case. He allegedly told her, "Very bad people are involved, and you don't want to pursue it further," a warning that points to someone with Eddie Mannix's influence. But the most explosive claim against Toni came years later. In the 1990s, a publicist named Edward Lawsey came forward with a stunning story. Lawsey said he had befriended an elderly Toni Mannix and that she kept a shrine to Reeves in her home. Lawsey claimed that one day, as a bedridden Toni was receiving last rites, he was in the room and overheard her deathbed confession to her priest. Terrified of going to hell, she allegedly admitted that she and Eddie were responsible for having George Reeves killed. This confession is hearsay and has been disputed, but it fits the known facts of the case. It explains the motive and provides a chilling, if unproven, resolution. From the obsessive calls to the early morning declaration of murder, and from her husband's notorious power to the lawyer's cryptic warning, many roads lead back to Toni Mannix. What do you think? Was it a tragic suicide driven by despair? A crime of passion by a spurned lover? Or a professional hit ordered by one of Hollywood's most powerful men? Let us know your theory in the comments below. And if you want to dive into more of Hollywood's darkest unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. For over 60 years, the official story of George Reeves's death has been suicide. A simple, tragic end for a man trapped by his own fame. But for many, the story is a lie, a convenient fiction crafted to protect the powerful. When you look at the evidence, the clean gun, the missing powder burns, the extra bullets, the bruises, the suicide theory starts to look like an impossibility. The mystery of what happened in that Benedict Canyon bedroom may never be officially solved, but many believe the truth is hiding in plain sight. It's the story of George Reeves, a man who brought joy to millions as an indestructible hero, but who in his own life was tragically vulnerable. He was vulnerable to the pressures of Hollywood and, perhaps, to the passions of a dangerous woman. The most compelling theory, supported by a mountain of circumstantial evidence and an alleged deathbed confession, points to Toni Mannix. She was the spurned lover, and she was married to the one man in Hollywood who could allegedly make a murder look like a suicide. The death of George Reeves wasn't a simple tragedy. Many are convinced it was a cold, calculated act of revenge, born from jealousy and executed with ruthless power. The Man of Steel was no match for the all-too-human forces of obsession and betrayal. His story remains a chilling reminder that sometimes, the most dangerous villains don't wear costumes, they live in mansions and hide their sins behind a wall of fame and influence.